Hey everybody, Brad and Marissa here with Equip 210 Wilmington. Thank you for joining us for our second Spanish class day dose video here on our YouTube channel. We decided to be a little bit more casual today, so we're doing a coffee conversation.
Yeah.
So this is where we, as we're experiencing, launching, and growing a Kingdom education program, and each week seeing things as we're interacting with a lot of parents and kids, we just ask a hard question that we know is on your guys' mind that you're walking through, and then just have a conversation, a hard conversation, oftentimes provoking because it's fun. I like to poke the bear, and comment below, feel free. This week's question is interesting because I know we've had seasons of life where this is applied, and I think we're just starting to get it well, but we have a lot of families that are leaving public education, and it's a different video for another day, but even private education, wildly enough, if you're watching this video and you've had your kids in private school, oftentimes bullying and issues are worse in private school than they are in public school, which is baffling to me, but it's true. So we have families that are leaving traditional educational models and coming to programs like Equip 210 and Equip 210. And it hit me today because there's been seasons of life where we've been through transition, and it was something about the situation we were in was like compelling me to take action. And so I was running from something, or I was making a decision to, or we were making a decision to like fix a problem. And we would focus on fixing the problem, but we wouldn't focus on like what we were actually aiming for.
Right.
It was like there's a leak in the pipe, and we need to get the leak stopped. And then it was like, now what? And so we just wanted to have a conversation about if you're considering, and I think this is what stops a lot of people from making the decision, is like they know they need to make a transition. So question is, if you're a parent, how do you go from I know that I need to change something to just stopping there? And because we see this happen where someone will be like, I need to change my educational situation, and then take action, and then they go through 5 different schools and realize that like the next thing wasn't the solution, and the next thing wasn't the solution, and the next thing. So how do you go from needing to make a decision to what do we take into consideration, and how do we walk through that process to get to the right decision around education? Obviously, we're biased and we love Equip 210, but there's other amazing schools and educational programs out there. So it's more of like, what does that process look like so you can not have to go through unnecessary transition for your kids and get that decision right? So long intro, but what do you think?
That's a great question. I think it comes back to like a mindset of not wanting to be reactionary all the time and actually pause, pray about the vision that you have, and like even like let yourself dream a little bit about what is like the ideal situation for education in your life. Maybe you've never considered it because you're like, well, there's really only 2 options. Well, that's actually changing a lot now. And I know homeschooling doesn't work for everybody, so that's why Equip 210 really was like the perfect hybrid for us, and so we're excited to bring that solution. I think in general, like obviously if you are married, like that's a spousal conversation that you both should pray about, and then kind of like dreamscape about it, you know?
I'm gonna poke the bear a little bit.
Okay.
So a couple of things. One, I want to get back to the pause comment, but I'm going to go there. You're welcome, wives, for me calling that out. That being said, you were talking about the pause, and I think that is so critical. Oftentimes when we feel anxiety or we feel stress about a situation, we want to run out of that situation. And we learn this in transition, that if you don't pause and learn as much from the negative thing as possible, you won't make the right positive decision. So yes, there's an element of protecting your kid and making sure that you are if there's just something that's super toxic and you need to pull them out of the environment, great. But before you jump into the next thing, like really pray through and think through what was, because we did this before we launched Equip 210, and it was like, oh, we think this is a solution for this, and we never really dug into what the root cause of those issues were,
Right.
and prayed about it and sought counsel about it, and we made a couple of like just poor decisions because we didn't like the pause part. I think is so key, and not just in
Yeah.
education but in life, like
Yeah, that's good.
slowing down, opening the Bible, spending time with the Lord.
Yeah.
I oftentimes, as a little sidebar, church comment related, it's I want to live a life that's spirit led, word rooted, and counsel backed. I want equal tension between all three, to where
Mhm.
the Holy Spirit's leading me, the Word is confirming it,
Yeah.
and independent counsel that is wise and is fruit. And that, like, learning to triangulate those three will help really project
very
you
good.
into a solid decision. Who's responsible for education decisions in a family? Is it the parents or is it the kids?
The parents.
It's the parents. Well, it's funny, but we talk to a lot of parents where they really want their kids' buy-in in terms of what's best for them. Like, they're still kids.
Yeah.
Like, they still need you to lead and make the hard decisions that they may not agree with, because even if they're 13, they have 13 years with the knowledge, you have
Right.
X amount of more knowledge. And I think oftentimes parents may think that they're failing, and so, like, because they don't feel like they've made good decisions to date, they lean into like agreeability with their kid versus like actually like learn from your failure and do it again. Like, you're the parent. So I think that's interesting. I think it's important. The other thing is that what we've learned, and I'd encourage every parent out there too, is and I learned this in business as well, your experience in education oftentimes is less rooted in the organization that you're having your kid attended into, and more specific to the actual person that they're going to be interacting with on a daily basis. And so I know in business all the time, I oftentimes get brought into projects as a management consultant to fix broken things. And 99% of the time, it was somebody that was assigned to do something that wasn't their gifting and talent, but they were willing, and because they didn't have the skill set to do it, you had a good person with good intentions, but they still failed. And I think oftentimes we look at education from, I'll be honest, like a little bit from a teacher perspective, a little bit too much grace. Like, I think like ultimately the outcomes are the health of our kids. And so like really understanding that our teachers have the right skills and the right heart and are in a season where they're able to pour out to our kids matters. It doesn't mean if that's not the case that that's a bad person, but like we're trusting our kids with people.
Yeah.
Like that's
matters.
a big thing. And I get it. Like some people are busier and some people have to work multiple jobs to provide for their families, and some people are going through seasons. I get all of those things, but it's still something that I really encourage people to pay attention to. What else do you think?
I don't know. I think those are like the big top of mind things. Yeah, I think it's a time where we should all be considering where we send our kids to on a full-time basis.
Yep.
And we can't all homeschool. I get that. But we live in a day and age where there's more options than ever before, and I hope people keep creating even more options and pushing traditional education being innovated. And I don't know, I'm not sure how that starts, but I'm sure somebody has been called to do that, and we felt called to start our own system based off of our founder Leslie's great input and years of experience. But yeah, it was, I think it's just getting unified around a vision and your non-negotiables and prayer. You can't go wrong.
Cool. Can I poke one more thing?
Sure.
Okay, cool. I think the other thing that we run into a lot in that transition phase, and if this is you, it's not a big deal, but I'll just ask you to pray and challenge you a little bit here. But we run into, unfortunately, well, in the state of North Carolina, we have the Opportunity Scholarship. Because we're structured as a homeschool co-op, it does not apply for us. And so we've worked very hard to price our program reasonably so that it's affordable, and we're not making a profit. We're literally investing back into the program. But I hear oftentimes like from parents like, how are you going to make your program more affordable for my kids?
Yeah.
And there is a time and place where, you know, a $600 a month tuition payment for a student is a lot of money. But I think oftentimes when I'm hearing those conversations, it's from people that I would just challenge, like, where are your priorities?
Yeah.
Like, look at your calendar and look at your checkbook. And in most of those cases, many of those cases, there's things that can be cut out of budgets to like prioritize their kids' education.
Mm-hmm.
And so like I think sometimes we look for the government, or we look for other people to maybe bail us out or help us in that area.
Mm.
And I just encourage you and empower you, parent, that like if it matters, you'll figure it out. And for the folks out there that are, you know, working extra jobs and like just figuring out how to do what they need to do to provide the right environment for their kids.
Mm-hmm.
And we've had seasons of that. We've had seasons where we lived in an RV for a year. But like we would do what was required for our kids to be successful and to be in the environment that would allow them to be. So I wanted to touch on that because I think oftentimes we may be unhealthily, obviously finances are important, but we unhealthily prioritize things above where we're putting our kids on a regular basis. And I tell families all the time, I'm like, you have really 3 places or 3 opportunities on a weekly basis, 3 buckets of where your kids are getting influence. You have Sunday school if you're in church, where they're around that environment and their kids. You have at home. You actually have, you know, activities and other things, but you're at home. And then you have where they're getting their education. And if you get the education right, you get your home right, and you get your Sunday school right, even if you're doing a lot of activities and there's other areas that they're exposed to other things, that's 80% of your week.
Yeah.
You're gonna win. But if you don't get the education right, and you do get the home right, and you do get the Sunday school right, you're only 50% of your time or less on track. And so you got to think out of the pie of influencing your children, what's getting the most time, who's giving the most input, and what's values are being instilled. Because you can, we know this, like we can spend an hour a day at home with our kids, teaching them values and like really like walking through what we feel is important. What they see modeled, they catch. What they hear, they do not catch as much. And so I think it's just an important thing that as you're trying to transition or pick the right thing, that you take that into consideration. So I think just to wrap up, like, I think our intent, although we kind of went on a few tributaries and rabbit holes there that were fun, our intent is that like if you're looking to change something educationally for your kids, if you're looking to move from whatever solution that you're moving to something else, don't run from something, run to something.
Yeah.
And if you need to run from something and pause, put a timeline on that pause and define what you're running to. Just make sure you're running to something that, and oftentimes this is where like we've had to step back in the back and be like, this is a new season. What do we really want in our family?
Yeah.
What do we value? What's important? What matters? There's been times where academics were more important. There's been times when friendships and social, like seasons change. It's okay. You're doing a good job, Mom and Dad. And we just encourage you that as you look to maybe be motivated and make some changes around your child's education, figure out where you want to go to as much as moving from where you're at. Again, we love y'all. See you next week.
Bye.
I intentionally went long. I was just